Welcome, deep divers. Picture a family saga so incredibly intense, so brimming with raw emotion and desperate maneuvers, it makes even the wildest reality TV shows of today feel, well, pretty tame, actually.
Yeah, like a gentle stroll through a botanical garden compared to this.
Exactly. We're talking about an ancient narrative that contains sibling rivalry pushed to its absolute limits, desperate, almost frantic schemes to conceive children, high-stakes workplace deception that would make a corporate lawyer blush, maybe.
Definitely raise an eyebrow.
Yeah.
And beneath all of it, you've got these unseen spiritual battles shaping the very future of a nation.
And this isn't some fictional drama. This is a chapter from the foundational history of humanity, just bursting with the messy, complex reality of human striving and, well, undeniable divine intervention.
That's right. And today we're taking an unreserved deep dive into Genesis chapter 30, a truly chaotic and emotionally charged narrative that, surprisingly, often gets overlooked in its complexity.
It really does.
Our mission is to unpack this pivotal biblical text, extracting not just the historical facts, the key people, places, cultural customs,
The basics, yeah.
but also the rich layers of allegory, metaphor, and typology that illuminate the unseen spiritual conflicts at play. And in doing so, we'll uncover profound insights that resonate deeply with our modern lives, offering, hopefully, a shortcut to understanding this powerful story.
Okay, let's really unpack this because there's so much here. We'll explore two distinct yet interconnected movements in this single chapter. First, we'll immerse ourselves in what we're calling the birth wars.
Good name for it.
Right. The incredibly intense and often painful competition between Jacob's wives, Leah and Rachel, and their handmaids, driven by an almost primal, desperate desire for children. It's a microcosm of human longing and striving.
Definitely. Then we'll shift gears entirely, examining Jacob's surprisingly clever, maybe even cunning, dealings with his manipulative father-in-law, Laban.
Oh, Laban.
Yeah, that guy. And this marks the beginning of Jacob's rather dramatic, divinely orchestrated rise to immense wealth.
So by the time we conclude this deep dive, you're going to walk away with more than just a chronological understanding of events.
Hopefully much more. You'll gain a clearer grasp of the specific historical context, the nuances of ancient Near Eastern culture, the motivations of these pivotal characters.
But more importantly, we'll connect these ancient stories to universal human experiences that transcend time, uncovering the behind-the-scenes spiritual battles that influence these lives.
Exactly. We'll draw powerful psychological, theological, and social lessons that are incredibly relevant to the challenges and choices we face in today's world. Ultimately, this is a story about human striving, divine sovereignty, and the unexpected, sometimes messy ways God works through imperfect people to fulfill his ultimate purposes. It's absolutely packed with meaning.
It certainly is. The tension is already palpable, isn't it?
Yeah.
So with that dramatic backdrop, where do we begin our deep dive into these intense birth wars?
Well, we have to begin right at the heart of the emotional conflict with Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife, steeped in deep distress over her barrenness.
Right, the favored wife, but childless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she is utterly consumed by jealousy for her fertile sister Leah, who has already borne Jacob several sons, while Rachel remains childless. And you have to understand, this isn't just a minor squabble.
No, not at all.
In that cultural context, barrenness was a significant social stigma, a source of profound personal humiliation, and an intense anxiety for women.
Yeah.
It was deeply tied to their perceived worth, their legacy, their place within the family unit.
And her desperation just pours out in that stark plea to Jacob, give me children or I'll die. It's such a raw, almost frantic cry, isn't it?
It's incredibly raw, and you're absolutely right. The emotional intensity here is undeniable. But what's truly fascinating, and quite frankly a bit eerie, is how this statement is profoundly prophetic.
Prophetic? How so?
Well, our sources highlight that this isn't just a dramatic outburst born of emotion. It's almost an unconscious yet potent utterance that foreshadows Rachel's eventual death in childbirth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when she finally gives birth to her last son, Benjamin, much later in Genesis, it's a powerful, tragic detail that adds this chilling layer of irony to her desperate wish.
She's literally speaking her future into existence without fully realizing the weight of her words. That's heavy.
It really is. It reflects the immense pressure and psychological burden she carried.
Jacob's response is equally charged, almost exploding with frustration. He snaps back, "Am I God? Am I the one who refused you babies?" That must have been a truly uncomfortable moment in their tent.
Oh, you can imagine.
What crucial theological and psychological points does that heated exchange reveal about their understanding of destiny and divine intervention in that household?
It's such a raw, volatile moment, and you're right, it hits on multiple levels. On one hand, Jacob's fury starkly reveals the immense pressure on women back then to bear children, tying their very worth and legacy to fertility.
Which he knows he can't control.
Which he himself acknowledges he cannot control. But his question, "Am I God?" also points to something much deeper. A recognition, even in his anger, that he is not the ultimate giver of life.
Okay, so there's a theological point there.
Right. It subtly, yet powerfully, acknowledges God's sovereignty, reminding Rachel and us that human efforts and emotional demands cannot force divine blessing, nor can they circumvent God's ultimate control over life itself.
And that tension between human striving and divine control, that's a major theme here, isn't it?
It's a thread woven throughout this entire chapter, playing out in the most intimate parts of their lives.
So, feeling that intense pressure, and with God not yet acting on her behalf, Rachel resorts to a common cultural custom of the time. She says, all right, here's my maidservant Bilhah, sleep with her, and she will bear children on my behalf.
Mm-hmm. It's a move that mirrors her ancestor Sarah giving Hagar to Abraham when she was barren.
Right, that same pattern.
Exactly. And this is a classic, though, problematic example of reliance on human tradition and control rather than patiently trusting God's timing and direct provision.
Trying to fix it themselves?
Pretty much. The sources describe this not merely as a cultural practice, but as an action driven by a certain spiritual emptiness and a palpable lack of faith in God's ability to act on his own. It's a form of self-reliance, an attempt to force God's hand to manufacture a blessing that they believe God is withholding.
It's the human flesh trying to achieve what only the Spirit can provide, as you said.
Precisely.
And it works, in a sense. Bilhah conceives and gives birth to a son. Rachel names him Dan, meaning God has vindicated me, or he is judged. She interprets this birth as God hearing her plea and taking her side in this bitter, ongoing rivalry with Leah.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, and quite frankly, a bit disturbing, in terms of those unseen spiritual battles at play.
Oh, what's that?
Our sources raise a significant point about Dan's problematic lineage right from its very inception. The tribe of Dan is conspicuously absent from the list of tribes sealed in Revelation 7.5-8.
Which is a big deal, yeah.
A major red flag in biblical typology. The study of how earlier biblical events foreshadow later realities, especially Christ and the church.
Right.
And historically, the tribe of Dan is also noted for introducing idolatry into the nation of Israel and was actually the first to apostatize from the worship of Yahweh.
Wow, really? So this difficult beginning kind of predicts future problems.
Well, it suggests deeply rooted spiritual issues stemming from its very beginning, born out of human desperation, a competitive spirit, and this desire for personal vindication rather than pure, trusting faith in God's timing. It's almost as if the spiritual poison of its inception carried through its entire tribal history, marking it with a kind of spiritual blemish.
Wow, that's a powerful and rather chilling detail considering the future of that tribe. Then Bilhah becomes pregnant again and gives Jacob a second son. Rachel names him Naphtali, meaning my struggle or intense struggle.
Right.
And she famously declares, I've been in an all-out fight with my sister and I've won. She's really laying her emotions bare there, isn't she?
She truly is. This naming choice vividly illustrates the constant, exhausting rivalry between the sisters. It's a veritable baby battle, like you said, a domestic battlefield characterized by deep envy, manipulative schemes, and profound insecurity.
It sounds like a spiritual battle right there in the family tent.
It really is. A battle against pride and self-sufficiency, turning what should have been sisterly support into relentless competition. It reveals the immense emotional toll this situation was taking on both women.
And didn't you mention something ironic about Naphtali?
Oh, yeah. Ironically, our sources note that the tribe of Naphtali later gained a reputation for having very beautiful women, which connects back to Rachel's own renowned beauty, even though Bilhah was the biological mother.
Huh. It's like Rachel's deep desire for beauty and favor, even through a surrogate, still left its mark on the legacy of this son. Interesting.
It is, isn't it?
So seeing Rachel's success with Bilhah and perhaps feeling her own biological clock ticking, realizing she had stopped bearing children herself, Leah, not wanting to be outdone, follows suit.
The competition continues.
Exactly. She gives her maidservant Zilpah to Jacob. Soon, Zilpah produces a son, and Leah names him Gad, meaning good fortune or victory, declaring, "How fortunate I am," or maybe "a troop cometh."
Yeah, this continues the intensely competitive naming, reflecting Leah's joy at gaining more children and her sense of winning around in this ongoing domestic battle.
That phrase, "a troop cometh," sounds almost military.
It does. It signifies a gathering force, almost a military-like expansion of her family's side in this relentless conflict. It's a stark metaphor for the kind of unseen spiritual warfare that can manifest in intense family rivalries where each side vies for dominance and blessing, often through human schemes rather than patiently trusting in divine timing.
And it highlights how important sheer numbers were, culturally.
Absolutely. Personal blessing and numerical strength were deeply intertwined.
And then Zilpah bears a second son, whom Leah names Asher, meaning happy, saying, "What joy is mine? The other women will consider me happy indeed," or "a happy day. The women will congratulate me in my happiness."
This is such a poignant statement because it shows Leah's deep longing for validation and recognition, especially from other women, and perhaps from Jacob himself, because she felt so unloved by him.
She's still seeking that external approval.
Exactly. She ties her happiness directly to the social status of having many children, a paramount cultural value back then. Psychologically, it reflects profound feelings of inadequacy and this deep need for external affirmation.
It's a pattern that resonates, I think, feeling overlooked, unseen, undervalued, and then trying to find worth in achievements.
Definitely. Her pursuit of happiness is through accumulation, through numbers, rather than finding intrinsic peace.
Okay, so the drama really ramps up to almost a comical degree with the mandrakes incident. One day during the wheat harvest, Leah's eldest son, Reuben, finds some mandrakes.
Oh yes, the mandrakes,
Yeah.
also called love apples.
Right. He finds them in a field and brings them to his mother. Now, historically, mandrakes were widely believed in the ancient world to be a potent fertility aid or aphrodisiac, thought to significantly enhance the human reproductive system. It's a powerful symbol.
Indeed, the mandrakes are a fascinating detail. And here comes the human scheming again. Rachel, still absolutely desperate for children, begs Leah for some of these mandrakes.
And Leah's response is just gripping with resentment.
Oh, it is. It's laced with a potent cocktail of anger and deep-seated bitterness. Wasn't it enough that you stole my husband, and now you also want my son's mandrake roots?
Ouch. That really shows the depth of the bitterness between them.
It really does. It highlights the unresolved emotional devastation that permeated their relationship, a direct consequence of the polygamous family dynamic. It also shows Leah's continued desire to bear children herself, even after using her handmaid. Her internal longing hadn't been satisfied.
And the mandrakes themselves, they kind of represent trying to force things, don't they?
They absolutely do. Metaphorically, they represent quick fixes, human superstition, and frantic attempts to manipulate divine blessing or control destiny through human means, rather than patiently trusting in God's providence.
Like chasing fads today for fulfillment?
Exactly. In modern terms, it parallels chasing self-help fads, consumerism, or even certain reproductive technologies for fulfillment, rather than cultivating a humble dependence on divine timing and provision.
And then Rachel, ever the sharp negotiator in this domestic drama, ups the ante. She tells Leah, "All right, you can have Jacob tonight if I get some of those mandrakes."
I mean, talk about a soap opera moment, as our sources aptly describe it.
It's shocking. It truly lays bare the desperate lengths these women were driven to by their longing for children and their profound insecurities.
And it's more than just a shocking deal, isn't it? This entire incident becomes a powerful allegory for that constant tension between human efforts and divine intervention.
Yeah, it highlights this spiritual emptiness, this desire to control destiny through any means possible, even bartering your husband.
It's a vivid illustration of humanity striving in its own strength. And here's the ultimate aha moment, the divine irony of it all. Despite Rachel acquiring the mandrakes and making this extraordinary death.
It's Leah who conceives.
Exactly. It is Leah who conceives again. The text explicitly states, God hearkened unto Leah. This strongly implies that the mandrakes themselves were not the cause of fertility, but divine intervention.
So much for the magic plan.
Right. It demonstrates the utter futility of human attempts to control destiny through superstition or bartering. God works in his own time and in his own way, often subverting our expectations.
So Leah gives birth to her fifth son, whom she names Issachar, meaning reward or hire, stating, "God has rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband as a wife."
And notice, Leah still frames her fertility as something she earned or was paid for by God. It reflects a transactional understanding of divine blessing rather than one rooted in pure grace.
Like, I did this, so God did that.
Precisely. Our sources pose a critical question here that resonates deeply. I don't ever want God to give me what I earned. I want God's grace and mercy. It's a profound reminder that true blessing, particularly from God, comes from his unmerited favor and perfect timing, not through earning his favor with works, self-sacrifice, or superstitious rituals.
Her constant need for affirmation, even from God, suggests she's still trying to justify her worth through her actions. It's kind of sad.
It is sad, yeah. Then Leah conceives again and has a sixth son, naming him Zebulun, meaning dwelling or honor. She says, "God has given me good gifts for my husband. Now he will honor me, for I have given him 6 sons."
So now she's hoping her productivity will finally win Jacob over.
It seems so. It shows her desire for Jacob's love, or at least his respect, shifting from simple affection to a hope for him to dwell with her and honor her specifically due to her sheer productivity. She's now the efficient wife who produces sons, clinging to the hope that sheer output will finally earn her husband's affection and solidify her place.
Heartbreaking, really. And then afterwards, she gives birth to a daughter, naming her Dinah.
Yeah, and it's an intriguing detail that Dinah is the only daughter named in this chapter. Her story will critically resurface in later chapters, highlighting the ongoing and often complex impact of these intricate family dynamics on the next generation.
The ripples just keep spreading. Okay, so after all the human manipulation, scheming, bartering, and superstitious practices, the narrative takes a profoundly beautiful and significant turn. God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and opened her womb.
This is the definitive turning point, a moment of profound divine grace. It explicitly credits God's sovereignty over Rachel's long barrenness, directly contrasting with all the earlier desperate human efforts.
It answers Jacob's earlier question, am I God?
It answers it resoundingly yes. God is indeed the one who controls the womb, and he works according to his own timing and purposes. Rachel's journey from barrenness to Joseph's birth is a powerful allegory for divine intervention and grace, echoing themes of divine presence and absence in human struggles.
It shows God's ultimate role in providing children and fulfilling his promises.
Absolutely. It underscores that God isn't manipulated by human schemes. He acts out of his own love and faithfulness.
And finally, Rachel conceives and gives birth to a son. She declares, God has taken away my shame. And she names him Joseph, meaning, may he add, praying, may the Lord give me yet another son. It's a moment of immense relief and gratitude for her.
It truly is Rachel's moment of giving credit where it's due, acknowledging God's grace and the removal of her profound shame. However, her naming Joseph, may he add, coupled with her earlier, give me children or I'll die, sadly and tragically foreshadows her death in childbirth with Benjamin, her next son.
Oh man, another prophetic layer. It's a bittersweet fulfillment of her initial desperate cry.
It really is. And typologically, Joseph is described as a good kid, a righteous son who stands apart from the rivalry that plagued his parents' generation.
Right, he seems different.
Very different. Our sources highlight Joseph's life as powerfully foreshadowing Christ's sacrificial role in saving his family. He becomes a type of Christ in provision and forgiveness, a beloved son, rejected by his brothers, sent away, yet rising to power to become a savior and provider for his family in famine. His story will become central to the unfolding narrative of God's people.
So with Joseph's birth, Jacob now has 11 sons in this chapter: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun from Leah, Dan, Naphtali from Bilhah, Gad, Asher from Zilpah, and Joseph from Rachel. These form the foundational blueprint for the 12 tribes of Israel.
That's the lineup.
And here's another truly fascinating typological insight you mentioned earlier. The messianic line, the line of Jesus himself, comes through Judah, the son of the unloved Leah.
That is such a profound theological statement on God's grace, choosing the humble and overlooked, absolutely defying human preference and highlighting God's wisdom over our own.
It's not the favored, beautiful Rachel.
Nope. It's the weak-eyed Leah, the one who constantly felt unloved, through whom the Messiah will ultimately come. This dysfunctional, competitive, and very human family is the very foundational blueprint for the nation that God chooses to bless, a powerful typology of God working through human brokenness and sin to accomplish his sovereign plan.
It shows the nation, and maybe the church too, isn't founded on perfection, but on grace working through flawed people.
Exactly. It's a testament to his redemptive power.
Okay, fantastic. Now let's shift to section 2. Jacob's deal with Laban, economic struggle, and divine blessing. Jacob has served Laban for 14 incredibly long years for his wives.
A long time.
A very long time. Now, with a sizable family, he tells Laban, "Send me away that I may go to my own place, to my country." He wants to establish his own household, provide for his burgeoning family, and clearly points out his faithful service and how Laban's wealth has grown dramatically through his presence.
Jacob has clearly earned his freedom and the right to his own future. But Laban, being the master manipulator he is...
Yeah. Here we go again with Laban.
Right. He recognizes that his own prosperity is deeply tied to Jacob's presence. So instead of letting him go, he begs Jacob to stay, making this intriguing statement. "I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because you are here."
Hold on, divination. That's a pagan practice, completely forbidden in the true worship of God. Yet Laban, a pagan, still acknowledges God's blessing through Jacob. What a contradiction.
It is a fascinating contradiction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Laban, despite practicing divination, a forbidden pagan practice, still has enough spiritual awareness to recognize God's blessing, seeing it flows through Jacob's presence.
But his motive isn't exactly pure, is it?
Not at all. His motivation is purely self-serving greed. He wants to continue exploiting Jacob's divinely granted blessing for his own benefit. This is a subtle yet significant unseen spiritual battle right here.
How so?
Laban's deception, his trickery, his attempts to exploit Jacob represent a spiritual battle against greed, injustice, and manipulation. Our sources explicitly draw a parallel between Laban's trickster nature and Satan's deceptive, often Christ-like, or counterfeit manipulation.
Counterfeit, like appearing good but being bad underneath.
Exactly. Satan often comes as a substitute, an imposter, not necessarily a monstrous figure seeking to deceive and exploit rather than openly attack. Laban embodies that kind of subtle opposition.
So Laban, ever the opportunist, asks Jacob to name his wages. And Jacob proposes what seems like an unconventional deal. He will take only the speckled, spotted, and dark-colored animals, sheep, and goats as his wages.
Yeah, these were generally less common, making it appear like a relatively small, even insignificant portion of the flocks.
And Jacob even offers an integrity check. "This will make it easy for you to see whether or not I have been honest. If you find in my flock any white sheep or goats that are not speckled, you will know that I have stolen them from you." Sounds fair enough on the surface.
It does. And Laban, believing this deal overwhelmingly favors him after all, the vast majority of his flock were plain-colored, eagerly agrees. But he immediately puts his own deceitful plan into action, trying to stack the odds even further in his favor.
Of course he does. What does he do?
That very day, he personally removes all existing speckled, spotted, and dark-colored animals from his flock, placing them under the care of his sons, far away from Jacob.
Sneaky.
Very. And here's the kicker. Laban then puts a 3-day journey between these marked animals and Jacob, ensuring they cannot breed with the remaining plain flocks that Jacob is tending.
So Jacob's left with basically nothing that could produce the kind of animals he's supposed to get paid with.
Precisely. He is left with what seems like the absolute least valuable, least promising portion of Laban's flock, seemingly at a huge, insurmountable disadvantage. It's a classic move of an exploitative boss trying to maximize his gain.
But Jacob, with what seems like a blend of human ingenuity and perhaps a touch of ancient folk wisdom, has a counter-strategy. He takes fresh shoots from poplar, almond, and plane trees and carefully peels off strips of bark, creating striking white streaks on them.
Right, these mottled branches.
Then he sets these peeled, streaked branches beside the watering troughs where the flocks come to drink and mate. The ancient belief, which Jacob apparently subscribed to, was that what animals viewed during breeding influenced the markings of their offspring.
A kind of prenatal influence idea, yeah.
And he's even more clever. He places these branches only in front of the stronger animals when they are mating, ensuring the stronger, more valuable offspring go to his flock. He doesn't do this for the weaker animals, so the feeble ones remain Laban's.
Okay, but here's where we see God's hand powerfully at work, orchestrating events to correct injustice. While Jacob's specific method might appear superstitious, or based on folk belief and modern genetics, would certainly dispute its direct effect.
Yeah, science wouldn't really back that up today.
Not directly, no. But the narrative emphatically attributes his extraordinary success to God's blessing and providence, not Jacob's technique alone. God works through Jacob's ingenuity and effort, even if the scientific basis of his method was flawed, to overcome Laban's persistent deceit and fulfill his divine purpose to bless Jacob.
So God's blessing the effort, maybe the faithfulness, rather than the scientific accuracy.
Exactly. It shows God blessing the effort and the intent to seek a just outcome, rather than requiring a scientifically accurate method. It's a profound metaphor for God working through human innovation, even when that human science is imperfect or based on traditional beliefs, to achieve his larger divine purposes. It highlights God's ultimate sovereignty.
And the incredible result, Jacob's flocks increased rapidly, and he became exceedingly rich, with many flocks, servants, camels, and donkeys. Laban's wealth, in contrast, diminished significantly.
Talk about poetic justice. This is a powerful demonstration of God's justice prevailing over human manipulation and greed. Jacob, who was once tricked and exploited by Laban for 14 years, is now divinely empowered to prosper despite Laban's continued attempts to exploit him.
It's like God saying, okay, payback time, but my way.
Pretty much. It's a powerful lesson that God doesn't owe any bills and will always pay those who are faithful and persevere, even when facing injustice. It clearly shows God's sovereign control, actively correcting injustices and thwarting satanic hindrance, which Laban's actions typify.
So Jacob's prosperity really typifies that divine blessing and providence.
Absolutely. It demonstrates how God enables his chosen one to prosper even in challenging, seemingly impossible circumstances and despite exploitation. He is faithful to his covenant promises.
That's a truly fantastic journey through the historical narrative of Genesis 30. We've seen the raw human emotions, the cultural pressures, and God's subtle hand throughout. Now, let's take an even deeper dive into Section 3. Deeper dive allegories, spiritual battles, and modern relevance. Starting with the allegorical and metaphorical parallels. The intense rivalry between Leah and Rachel, for example, serves as a powerful allegory for the human condition of seeking validation and love in the wrong places, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's such a potent metaphor for human longing. Their story vividly illustrates the deep, universal desire for fulfillment, significance, and acceptance, which is often sought through external factors like children, social status, wealth, or the approval of others.
And you see that contrast. Rachel, beautiful and loved, but jealous and barren.
Right, while Leah, less loved, maybe plain, finds solace and praise in God through her fertility. This is a profound metaphor for prioritizing inner character and divine relationship over external success or outward appearances.
A struggle so relevant today with social media and everything.
Incredibly relevant. And their actions, the surrogacy, the mandrakes, they allegorize the constant struggle between human efforts and schemes, what we might call the flesh, versus God's sovereign intervention and grace the Spirit. Leah's surprising fruitfulness, despite being unloved, represents grace triumphing over human favoritism and striving.
And the mandrakes themselves take on symbolic weight beyond just ancient fertility aids, don't they? They're not just ancient plants.
No, they become a powerful metaphor for quick fixes, for human superstition, and for attempts to manipulate divine blessing or control destiny through our own means, rather than trusting in God's providence.
Like looking for shortcuts to happiness.
Yeah, exactly. In a modern context, this parallels chasing fleeting self-help fads, indulging in rampant consumerism, or relying on escapism for happiness and fulfillment, rather than cultivating a humble dependence on divine providence and genuine spiritual growth. It's the yearning for instant gratification in a world that often demands patience. We're still searching for those magic mandrakes today, aren't we?
That's so true. We all look for those shortcuts. What about Jacob's unique breeding methods with the streaked branches? Beyond the literal, what do they symbolize about God's work?
Jacob's breeding methods are a fascinating metaphor for God working through human ingenuity, even when that human science is flawed, superstitious, or seemingly irrational by modern standards, to achieve his divine purposes.
So God can use our imperfect efforts.
It suggests that innovation, creativity, and persistent effort, when aligned with ethical principles and ultimately surrendered to God's will, can lead to blessing. It's a powerful illustration that God's sovereignty isn't limited by our understanding of cause and effect. He can, and often does, use unconventional means to accomplish his plans.
It shows it's his blessing, not just Jacob's technique.
Precisely. He rewards the faithfulness of the effort.
And Rachel's journey from long-standing barrenness to the eventual birth of Joseph, what does that signify allegorically for us?
That's a truly powerful allegory for divine intervention and grace, echoing profound themes of divine presence and absence in human struggles. It's a testament to God's ultimate control over life itself and his unfailing ability to fulfill promises, even in the face of long-standing despair, human manipulation, and perceived impossibilities.
It brings hope.
It does. And Jacob's subsequent prosperity, despite Laban's trickery, serves as a powerful type of divine blessing and providence, demonstrating how God enables his chosen ones to prosper, even in challenging, exploitative circumstances, proving that his justice ultimately prevails.
So we've explored the allegorical significance of their rivalry and actions, but beneath all this intense human drama and the very personal struggles, there's clearly a deeper, unseen spiritual struggle at play here, isn't there? This rivalry between Rachel and Leah is more than just a family squabble.
It is so much more. This intense competition between Rachel and Leah is a profound manifestation of a larger spiritual battle. Our sources highlight that Satan, as the ultimate adversary, actively whispers jealousy, comparison, and envy into human hearts.
Trying to disrupt things from the inside.
Exactly. Sowing discord and attempting to corrupt the messianic lineage that is just beginning to form through Jacob's sons. The struggle isn't merely against his sister. It's against pride, against self-sufficiency, and against the forces that turn what should have been sisterhood and unity into bitter, relentless rivalry.
And their schemes, the handmaids, the mandrakes,
they reflect a spiritual battle against self-reliance and a profound lack of trust in God's timing and direct provision. They're trying to achieve God's blessing through their own power and schemes rather than through prayer, patience, and faith.
And Laban's continuous deception, his attempts to exploit Jacob, how does that play into the spiritual warfare? Is he simply a greedy man, or is there a deeper, darker force at work through him?
It's both, but with a definite spiritual undertone. Laban's continuous attempts to exploit Jacob represent a spiritual battle against greed, injustice, and a desire to usurp what God intends to bless.
You mentioned he's like a type of Satan.
Our sources explicitly draw that parallel between Laban's trickster nature and Satan's deceptive, often Christ-like or counterfeit manipulation. Satan rarely comes as a monstrous figure. More often, he comes as a substitute, an impostor seeking to deceive, to derail God's plans, and to exploit human weakness for his own purposes.
But God steps in.
But God's hand in Jacob's prosperity, despite the superstitious methods, powerfully demonstrates his sovereign control, actively correcting injustices and thwarting that satanic hindrance. God's remembering Rachel directly counters any perceived spiritual curses of infertility, showing his ultimate authority.
It's like that verse in Ephesians about wrestling not against flesh and blood.
Exactly. Ephesians 6.1. Our true battle is not with flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. These ancient narratives provide vivid, tangible examples of these unseen forces at work, fueling division, self-reliance, and injustice.
Building on those unseen battles, when we zoom out, how do these ancient figures and events actually prefigure larger spiritual truths about God, Jesus, humanity, or even Satan? What are the typological parallels here?
This is where the profound depth of the narrative really shines. This dysfunctional, competitive family, Jacob, Leah, Rachel, and their children, is the very foundational blueprint for the nation that God chooses to bless, Israel.
That messy family is the start.
That messy family. This is a profound typology of God working through human brokenness, sin, and profound imperfection to accomplish his sovereign plan. It demonstrates that God's grace builds his people despite their failings, their squabbles, their flawed attempts at self-help.
So God's people aren't built on perfection.
Not at all. The nation of Israel, and indeed the church, are not founded on human perfection or pristine unity, but on God's enduring grace amidst deep human imperfections. And the most significant typological element is that the line of the Messiah, Jesus, comes through Judah, the son of the unloved Leah, not the beloved Rachel.
God choosing the underdog, basically.
Exactly. It beautifully illustrates God's counterintuitive choice of the humble, the overlooked, and the least expected. As 1 Corinthians 1.27 says, God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong, defying human preference and societal expectations.
And Joseph, Rachel's firstborn son, takes on immense typological significance, doesn't he? His birth here is just the beginning of a story that feels almost like a pre-echo of Christ.
Absolutely. Joseph's birth here is truly foundational for his entire life story, which, when you look closely, powerfully foreshadows Christ himself. Think about it. Joseph is the beloved son of his father, Jacob.
Like Jesus is God's beloved son.
Right. He's then rejected and ultimately sold into slavery by his own brothers, a profound betrayal that echoes Christ's rejection and crucifixion by his own people. Sent away, presumed dead, Joseph eventually rises to a position of immense power in Egypt.
And then saves them.
And then from that position, he becomes the very savior and provider for his family during a severe famine, ultimately forgiving those who wronged him and bringing reconciliation. This journey of suffering, rejection, exaltation, provision, and forgiveness is a striking type of Christ's sacrificial role in saving humanity and restoring relationship with his Father, despite our failings. It's a beautifully layered foreshadowing.
And Jacob's 14 years of labor for Rachel, is there a deeper meaning there too?
Indeed. Jacob's 14 years of arduous labor for Rachel, whom he deeply loved, can be seen typologically as an image of Christ's own sacrificial work and patient suffering for his bride, the church.
Like in Ephesians 5.
Exactly, Ephesians 5.25, Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. It's a picture of costly, enduring love. What's also fascinating is Jacob's speckled and spotted flocks.
What about them?
Typologically, this points to God's ability to bless the least likely, those considered marked or blemished by societal standards, and to transform perceived weakness into immense strength. Spiritually, it powerfully prefigures Gentiles, who are often seen as marked or unclean outside of Israel, being grafted into God's covenant blessing through Christ, as described in Romans 11.
Wow, okay, so much depth there.
And more broadly, the entire chapter clearly illustrates humanity's inherent weakness and sinfulness and our profound need for hope and God's grace. And throughout it all, God's sovereignty is consistently highlighted, actively involved in the birth of the children and in Jacob's prosperity, even in unconventional ways, emphasizing his ultimate power to fulfill promises, regardless of human effort or opposition.
That's a rich tapestry of meaning. Now, let's bring this all the way to modern-day analysis. How does Genesis 30 speak to us spiritually, psychologically, theologically, and socially in our contemporary lifestyles? What spiritual relevance does this ancient story hold for you today?
Spiritually, this story profoundly challenges the modern temptation to control our own destiny through our own schemes, our relentless climbing of career ladders, or even through advanced reproductive technologies, rather than truly trusting in God's providence and timing.
That impatience is so relatable.
It really is. Rachel's desperate impatience that cry, "Give me children or I die," mirrors our own struggles to wait on God's promises in an instant gratification culture. It reminds us that true spiritual strength comes from humbly acknowledging God's power and sovereignty, not from self-reliance or frantic efforts to force an outcome.
And those modern mandrakes.
Exactly. The pursuit of quick fixes, whether it's through self-help fads promising instant transformation, rampant consumerism promising happiness through possessions, or escapism through entertainment. We chase these things for a sense of fulfillment rather than cultivating a humble, patient dependence on divine providence and genuine spiritual growth.
Psychologically, this chapter is a goldmine for understanding human behavior. The envy and the deep feelings of inadequacy are palpable between Leah and Rachel.
They truly are. Rachel's declaration, "Give me children or I die," is an extreme, almost pathological expression of envy, rooted in profound feelings of inadequacy and a desperate lack of control over her own fertility.
And that envy just poisons everything.
It actively poisons her relationship with Leah, fostering bitterness and competition. This mirrors how comparison, especially through the filtered lenses of social media today, can stealthily steal joy, peace, and contentment in modern life, leading to feelings of not being enough.
And Leah's side.
And then there's Leah, whose relentless pursuit of Jacob's love through childbearing exposes her own deep feelings of being unloved and inadequate. This highlights how a lack of unconditional love and affirmation can drive people to extremes, to constantly strive for external validation, a pattern tragically familiar in dysfunctional families today.
Our sources mention attachment theory.
Yeah, they explicitly connect this to attachment theory and the profound impact of unmet emotional needs. The entire polygamous family structure, with its inherent favoritism, intense jealousy, and constant manipulation, serves as a profound case study on the detrimental effects of unhealthy relationship patterns.
Which is still relevant today in blended families, co-parenting, inheritance disputes.
It's highly relevant, absolutely.
Theologically, what's the big takeaway for us from this incredibly messy human story?
Theologically, Genesis 30 is a powerful chapter on divine sovereignty, demonstrating unequivocally that God's plans are not derailed, nor are his promises thwarted by human sin, deep-seated dysfunction, or emotional chaos.
He works through the mess.
He consistently works through broken people and their failures, their schemes, and their imperfections to achieve his overarching redemptive purposes. It profoundly challenges the modern tendency to seek fulfillment, worth, and blessing through self-effort, personal achievement, or a performance-based approach to faith.
So it's grace, not earning it.
The central enduring message is that true blessing, lasting peace, and genuine fulfillment come from God's unmerited grace and perfect timing, not through earning his favor with works, superstitious rituals, or manipulative bartering. It's a theological reflection on God's majestic ability to create life, to forgive sin, and to bring good out of even the most complicated human situations.
And socially, how does this ancient text, with its customs and conflicts, resonate with our contemporary lives and the challenges we face today?
Socially, the use of handmaids as surrogates offers a direct, ancient parallel to modern reproductive technologies, prompting ethical and spiritual questions that are still debated today about control over life, the role of surrogacy, and the pursuit of children at any cost.
It forces us to think about the implications of our science.
It does. And the intense rivalry between the sisters for Jacob's attention and for children mirrors the equally intense competitive nature of modern society, whether in careers, in the pursuit of social media status, or even in personal achievements. This constant competition frequently leads to widespread feelings of inadequacy, envy, and burnout.
That comparison trap again.
Exactly. Finally, Jacob's struggle with Laban over fair wages and his divinely blessed counter-strategies resonate deeply with contemporary workplace challenges. It highlights the enduring importance of integrity and ethical practices in business relationships and sheds light on the reality that employees often navigate complex, sometimes exploitative employer-employee dynamics.
It reminds us where ultimate blessing comes from.
Yes, that ultimate blessing comes from God's justice and favor, not just human shrewdness or corporate policy.
Wow, what an incredible journey through Genesis 30. We've seen a household steeped in envy, desperation, and cunning, where characters often acted out of selfish desires, profound insecurity, and a lack of trust. Yet, amidst all this profound human fallibility, God's sovereign will remained firmly in control, quietly building the foundational blueprint of the nation of Israel and pointing forward through brokenness to the Messiah.
You discover that God uses even human weakness, dysfunction, and flawed choices to fulfill his promises and accomplish his greater purposes. You've seen that true blessing comes not from striving, superstition, comparison, or human manipulation, but from God's sovereign grace and perfect timing.
And those struggles we face today.
And the insecurities, rivalries, and feelings of inadequacy we face today often reflect deeper, unseen spiritual battles. But Christ offers an identity, healing, and unity that transcend these conflicts, inviting us to rest in his provision rather than our own efforts.
This ancient account serves as a powerful mirror, challenging you, our listener, to examine your own motivations and to consider where you are truly placing your trust. Is it in personal achievement, in constant comparison, or in the faithful sovereign provision of God?
Because despite our imperfections, despite our manipulations and our striving, God's faithfulness will always prevail to fulfill his promises.
So what does it look like for you to trust God's provision and timing in an area where you might have been relying on your own schemes or endless striving? Something to consider as you go about your week. Thanks for diving deep with us.